Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to the NBL Show presented by Fox Sport. Another round of NBL action is in the books, and as always, we are here to break down the biggest news and all of the biggest topics in the NBL world. I'm your host, Josh Higgins, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jai Shadlow. Jai, mate, welcome back to another episode of the NBL Show. How you been? How's the week been treating yourself as well, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. I think we're just discussing before recording. I think we're the polar opposites in terms of weather. You're boiling over in Perth. I'm freezing in Melbourne right now. So doing well. I'm all rugged up. And yeah, what a weekend of basketball. Some pretty shocking games, to be honest. But, you know, we'll dive into that and do a little bit of a deep dive into what's going on with Melbourne United. They seem to be a complete and utter, Jekyll and Hyde type of team with that 9-0 undefeated team is just like, it feels like it was last season. So yeah, I'm keen to break that down.
Yeah, definitely. It was another interesting round. You speak of that hot patch over here in WA. It's currently 4:30, 5 o'clock over here, and it's still 31 degrees. So absolutely great weather to be sitting in a boxed off room and doing a podcast. But nonetheless, we'll push through and looking forward to breaking it down. And you're 100% bang on, mate. It was obviously a lot of big topics sort of coming out of round number 12. Before we dive into that as well, we want to touch on what is coming up on Fox Sport Australia this week. So you've probably already seen a couple of things floating through. There's talking points that are live. I believe Jai's NBL power rankings will be coming out either tomorrow morning, I do believe, potentially. We broke some news, or a bit of an exclusive, I guess you could say, as well today with Parker Jackson Cartwright, which we'll dive into a little bit later in the show as well and give the latest on that situation. And I've got some NBL MVP power rankings and a couple of other things brewing in the background as well. So plenty coming out over the next few days. As always, go over www.foxsport.com.au, head into the basketball and NBL section for all the latest news and topics covering from Jai and I and the team over at Fox Sport. But Jai, let's dive into round number 12. It was a pretty impressive round number 12 across the board. We saw some teams kind of reignite their seasons. I more look at the Sydney Kings and the Jack Jumpers in that one. And then, you're touching on the Adelaide 36ers as well, who are just continuing in their hot form. And Melbourne United struggle again. The Hawks get a win. The Taipans struggle after an impressive win the week before. What were sort of your biggest takeaways from round number 12? And I guess we can probably dive into Melbourne United, which you sort of touched off the top there as well.
Yeah, I think we'll save Melbourne United for after, just because they're probably going to take a bit longer than the other teams. Pretty impressed with Tasmania at the moment. They've won 2 games in a row. I wouldn't get too excited for me personally, just because they were on like a 6-game losing streak before that, I believe, or 7. And they did defeat South East Melbourne and then Cairns. So South East Melbourne was a good one, but playing at Gippsland, it's a pretty shocking arena to It happened last year. I don't know if you remember last year. Wasn't it like the moisture caused like a lot of injuries with Brisbane especially? So I consider that it's great that they beat Sam, but Sam they did go 1-1, but they need Malik Lewis and Owen Foxwell back soon. But outside of that, it's just Brisbane it's just being a really disappointing team. Perth are just disappointing as well. I've put a bit of an asterisk for their win against Brisbane, just because they scored 62 points and they're just one of the worst teams I've seen in a very long time. But I think Sydney deserve a bit of props for what they've been going through this season, and pretty up and down, but it seems like, looking at the raw data and the advanced metrics and stuff, they're one of the best defensive teams right now. And Kendrick Davis is starting to find his MVP form that he got runner-up in last season.
What do you I want to dive in. So we'll start with the Sydney Kings, then we'll digress to the Brisbane Bullets as well, because, we had a bit of a look at the metrics when we're looking at the Sydney Kings. And like you said, when you're looking at offensive rating and defensive rating as well, sort of over this last little stretch here, they are well and truly one of the better teams. I believe they were top 2 in offensive rating, and they're the number 1 defensive rating team in the NBL currently. And you look at their team and you kind of go, this team on paper is well and truly better than the way they've been performing to start the season. And it wasn't only that long ago where they were riding a 4-game winning streak after that disappointing loss to the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, which kind of ignited that little run. And then heading into the FIBA break and the week after the FIBA break, it was disappointment for the Sydney Kings. But again, 2-0 this week, I guess you could say as well. 2-2 since the FIBA break, I do believe, or 2-1 in that time as well. So they're starting to turn things. But do you think head coach Brian Goorjian is starting to finally understand that Kendrick Davis is such a dynamic player where he's not just a scorer. He needs the ball in his hands for multiple possessions, especially late down the piece as well, because he can definitely win you multiple games instead of losing more games as well.
Yeah, I think a huge addition was Matthew Dellavedova. It's not coincidence. I'm pretty sure before he got injured, they won 3 games, and then he's come back. They won another 2. So they've won 5 in a row, essentially, to me, when Dally's been playing. And he's come back from injury. They've won the 2 games, and I've watched that game. I didn't watch much of the recent game, but the Perth one, even though Dally was kind of a bit rusty and stuff, you could just tell his presence and just the minutes he was providing on the court freed up KD just to absolutely go mental. He scored 38 points, which is his second highest of his career. Made it look effortless. I think Gorge is ecstatic that they're back, and Sean Bruce as well. Like having that veteran guard rotation is just huge to free it up, and then KD doesn't have to be the guy facilitating and scoring. He can lock into one role. But that for me, that's a huge takeaway. I think Dally has proven how invaluable he is to the team.
Yeah, and that 38 points from Kendrick Davis as well was the second all-time for opposing teams' points in a game at RAC Arena as well, only behind Jerome Randall, who had a 40-piece back in NBL 17 for the Adelaide 36ers. But a massive week for the Sydney Kings nonetheless. And we speak about the Brisbane Bullets, and let's digress there as well, because there's been a little bit of controversy since our last episode. And Jai, obviously, you're lucky enough to kind of have a bit of an inkling into that members-only forum there at the Brisbane Bullets, and a couple of little things that were going on there as well. And a fan had a pretty direct question, it must be said, kind of at Stu Lash and what the future of the Brisbane Bullets coaching system, I guess, looks like. And Stu had a couple of interesting comments about that as well before the team went on to go 0-2 this weekend and are now on a 6-game losing streak. So can you kind of, I guess, shed some insight into that meeting, some of the comments that were there, and some of your sort of opinions and thoughts on Stu Lash, the Brisbane Bullets, and sort of their current status as well?
I think it's something that doesn't have many layers. I think this is just a guy who doesn't have experience. We all knew it coming into the season. There was a big reason why everyone was concerned. They raised their eyebrows when he signed. I think it's a bloke who's using his friends as a way to get a good role. And that's not me having a dig at him. It's just any industry people work in and people listening will know, it helps to know people. And so he got a good role from it. He's been with Brisbane prior to that. So I don't know much about his background, but you could say he earned this right to be a coach. He wanted to have a crack at it, but it's clearly not working. And so during the members meeting Q&A, I'll give him this. He took it on the chin. Like, he was actually pretty good in terms of just allowing people to speak and say their minds. But near the end of the meeting, there was one pretty honest guy who was pretty respectful. He said, like, look, I'm pretty sorry. I have to say this and then get off my chest. And then he had a lot of experience himself as a coach for 20 years. And then he basically just said, like, would you consider just stepping down and let one of the assistants coach take over, because you're clearly a better manager than you are a coach? And with Lash replied saying, the wheels are in motion. It's happening. Like, it's not happening, but like, there are discussions being made where I will take a seat back and be more on the manager side and let someone come in and coach. Now, I don't know if that was political talk and he's just saying it just to please everyone. But they have lost 2, went 0-2 after he said that. So I think I'm getting a feeling that this week there will be changes made, because I don't know if you watched the game, but again, there was a situation where he was just standing around. The assistant coaches are saying something, and then all he did was like, "Yep, yeah, you got that, guys, sweet." I was like, "Mate, what?" Well, if you're not going to be providing plays and stuff, you're not even providing like motivation. So it's just, and if I'm a player, I'd be rolling my eyes. I'm like, mate, what is going on? So we'll see what happens.
I just want to dive into a couple of stats here. So as I sort of spoke about, they're on a 6-game losing streak. So since round 9, that's when that 6-game losing streak started.
Right.
Now, for our little advanced metric heads and our, absolute sickos like myself and you, Jai, when we're looking a little bit deeper into the stats, they sit 10th in defensive rating in that period and 10th in offensive rating. Now, let me just put that in perspective as well from a points per game average. They're scoring and averaging 77.5 points per game in that period. Now, the Cairns Taipans this season have been absolutely horrible on the offensive end. We've seen from the start of the season, they've slowly gotten it going over the last couple of rounds, but the Cairns Taipans sit 9th. So the Brisbane Bullets are 77.5. The Cairns Taipans, who are 9th, sit at 89.6 points per game. So you've got a 12-point advantage there from the Cairns Taipans on the Brisbane Bullets, who are on the bottom of the ladder. Now, when we flip that completely on the opposite end of it, and we're looking at defensive and what these teams are allowing per game as well, the Sydney Kings are the best team in the NBL, allowing 87 points per game. Interestingly enough, the Brisbane Bullets aren't actually 10th. Melbourne United, over the past 3 rounds, sit with the highest opponent's point per game average of 99.3, which is just incredible when you're looking at what Melbourne United have been for such a long period of time, and obviously early in the season as well, one of the best defensive teams. But the Brisbane Bullets are right behind them. 98.5 points per game is what they're allowing. So they're only scoring 77 points per game and are allowing 98 points per game. That is a very alarming statistic. And I know the Brisbane Bullets coaching staff and organisation will say it's coming down to integrating players back into the lineup, likes of Mitch Norton, Sam McDaniel, Javon Freeman-Liberty, new guys like Terry Taylor. That does give you a little bit of grace. But you've now lost 6 games in a row. You lost the 2 games before the FIBA break. You've lost the 4 games since the FIBA break in very disappointing fashion. That game against the Perth Wildcats was probably as scrappy of a game that I've ever seen in my life. And realistically, the Wildcats played horrible. If they played, I reckon, any other team in the NBL, they lose that.
They would have lost.
Game. Yeah, without a doubt. And, none of their stars stepped up. If you look across the board, I think 15 points might have been the highest in that game. I think it was Ben Henschel as well. So just nothing really coming from either team. So it was just a super disappointing loss. And realistically, it just begs the question to me. And I put this in my talking points for this round. And it's kind of like, when's the time? When do the Brisbane Bullets make that decision to kind of go, all right, Stu Lash, thank you very much. You're done. We can't have you as the coach. We're going to go just bring one of these assistant coaches in once again, who they give a bit of a chance to. They show something and then never hire them going forward. Do you try and do what the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix did? And I know it's way later in the season, but do you try and find that guy for next season to build some continuity with some of these players who you might look to bring back? I highly doubt that will be an option, because what coach is realistically going to come over to the NBL with a team that's no chance of making the top 6? So I know that's a very unlikely situation, but I just think something needs to be done. Like if you're the Brisbane Bullets, Jai, and again, this is us just giving our own opinions, but when is the right time? I think the right time was probably 5 or 6 rounds ago, to be completely fair. And I know that's unfair to Stu Lash, but at the same time, it's not. But if you're going to sack him now, it kind of needs to be in the next couple of rounds, doesn't it?
Well, it puts him in a really tough position, because they were the ones who took the risk on doing this, and they knew it was an internal hiring, despite, previously advertising they're going to go, and I quote, scope the world for coaching talent. And I've spoken to coaches in Japan who were part of that stage 1 of interviewing and they said, I speak to them currently just saying, what do you make of the current Brisbane situation? And they say, one of them specifically says, if I was coaching that team, we'd be getting essentially like a top 4 position with that roster, which basically just says like, Stu Lash is just not doing a good enough job. But I think even if you shut down the season, I still think they have enough left in the tank for the season to make a run if they're serious about making change. But just for the fans and the sake of putting bums in seats, you have to get rid of Lash to show that you're listening and to show that, like, look, we hear you, we're willing to change. But if Lash is in that seat and till the end of the season, you've just essentially wasted member money, people coming to games and stuff, because they don't want to rock up to see their team scoring 65, 62 points and losing. Like, it's just not good enough. Like, it has to be, you have to think about the fans now.
Yeah. And I think I just want to give props to the Brisbane Bullets as well, though. There's not many clubs nowadays who do those member forums, like member only forums. And I think that they're very important, because your members are the lifeblood, especially in communities like the Brisbane Bullets and the Cairns Taipans. to a lesser degree, Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne United, you'd say probably wouldn't have them. They're just a lot bigger clubs and they're a lot more successful and everything like that as well. But, I'd love to see a South East Melbourne Phoenix probably reaching out to their fans a little bit more and actually engaging within the community a lot more than what they probably do. The Tassie Jack Jumpers, albeit they're a very successful club for where they currently sit in the NBL picture, but a very tight-knit community and everything as well. I just think you've got to give props to Brisbane for that. But then the thing is, though, you've got to listen to the advice and listen to the opinions that have been held and then do what you have to do with that. And that is potentially, like you've said, sacking Stu Lash to keep these people and the bums on seats going into next season. So they're not feeling like, okay, we're just settling for mediocrity every single season. We haven't had a successful season in God knows how long. And, last championship is closer to 20 to 25 years than it is to, potentially having one in the rafters over the next few years. So there's so many concerns with Brisbane. And I look at their core roster and I go, Tyrell Harrison is probably going to be a massive fish, where the Breakers are potentially going to go hard for, with him being a local and all that sort of stuff. You can't lose him. He could be an NBA guy as well, so there's that in the background as well. But Sam McDaniel is another guy, Mitch Norton. These guys want success. And if they can't find it in Brisbane, I guarantee you they'll go somewhere else. We've seen it before in their careers. They've moved multiple times or whatever the case as well. So very, very big. Sorry, you got something on that?
Yeah, just to add to that, when I did my alumni episode with James Bateman, I had him and Keandre Cook literally telling me that they both wanted to stay and come back, but because Bateman told me, he's like, I was really, where do I sign? I'm like, let's go. But because they were pursuing Jalen Adams at the time, because I don't know why, like in hindsight, I can say this, like why would they do that? But you've got to clearly, and he'd be cheaper, like Bateman would be cheaper. And he's already settled. Like, why wouldn't this guy scored 52 fucking points? Like, what's going on? Like, so it just tells me like their plans are just reactionary. They're not being proactive enough. So yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Brisbane Bullets do. Now, let's dive into Melbourne United, Jai. Let's finally release, I guess, the shackles on what we want to say about this team, because sometimes in the media, as we do know in the NBL space, Melbourne United sometimes go into that protective species sort of habitat and area where people don't want to rip them apart. And I think it's all fair at the moment. Their last 4 games, they have lost every single one of them. Now, albeit before you dive in here, Jai, with a couple of statistics and defensive ratings and everything like that as well, they have played the other top 5 teams. So they have lost to Adelaide, South East Melbourne, Perth Wildcats, and the Sydney Kings. So in terms of their run and their toughness of schedule, it's 100. Where we're looking at it, I believe it was a game in Perth they lost, a game in Adelaide, an away game at John Cain Arena, still home anyways, and then a home game against the Sydney Kings, which they lost in overtime. But I'm going to quickly just chuck one out here, and I saw it on the new, I think it's at NBL Stats on Twitter, on X. Incredible statistic here as well. I ran with it in the talking points, and I wanted to give a quick little shout out on here as well. Melbourne United were the 11th team in NBL history to play back-to-back overtime games, which is just incredible. So we saw it obviously against Adelaide, then against the Sydney Kings. But unfortunately for them, they are the first team. It's not much, but unfortunately for them, they are the first team in NBL history to lose both overtime games. So on the wrong side of history once again. But Jai, take it away, because there is some deep-rooted issues here with Melbourne United, which are quite concerning, because you spoke about it earlier. That team that dominated the first 9-10 rounds of the NBL season are not the team that they are right now.
No, and I think obviously the big one here is 3-point shooting, and not just them shooting. A big reason for their defeats this year is how many threes they allow to their opposition. And with that 4-game losing streak, they have conceded a total of 48 threes in those 4 games, which is by far the most since round 11. And not only that, but the teams who are doing that have been shooting it at 40%, which they're conceding the worst. So 40 plus threes they're conceding at 40% is not good. And that is a big explanation as to why they're losing. And now if we go to the opposite end, if everyone watched that game on the weekend, it was not good. There was a game against Sydney, and it was 1 for 28 from 3. Yep. I've never seen a shooting display like that. Chris Golding airballing a potential game-winning shot. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if this is chemistry issues now. Like Jesse Edwards was out, big, cool. I don't think that plays a huge factor in terms of the way they performed. There is clearly an issue going on. Fabijan Kristovic played amazing though, so there's one we can give a little positive to that.
And Finn Delaney, I think, played incredible over those 2 games as well.
Yeah. So the scrappy guys are playing well, which is and that's probably, an indicator of the guys who don't shoot much are on the and score on the inside are playing a lot better. But Milton Doyle and Chris Golding, man, they were 1 for 17 combined from deep. Milton Doyle's playing just really poor at the moment. And so it's hard to put it what the reason is, but the first 9 they won, I remember with us talking 2 months ago, going, "This is it. This game, season's over. They're going to win it all." And that was everyone's common theme. The team goes 9-0, but then you look at the teams they beat, and it's kind of early in the season with Sydney. Sydney were pretty crap in the early season, and now teams are finding second half of the season, teams are trying to start finding their form and rhythm identity. And Melbourne United okay, we've kind of been coasting a bit, we've been relaxing a little bit too much here, and they're getting caught off, but. Again, they have lost 4 in a row and they're still second in the ladder, which just goes to show how powerful they were in the first half of the season. I still think they're one of the best teams. They'll find their form. Dean Vickerman's too good of a coach to allow this to continue. But yeah, it's a bit concerning at the moment.
I'm gonna dive into something here, and I don't have the statistics in front of me right now to completely back me up, but give me a couple of days and this will be on my X account at Josh Higgins Fox, and as well, check out at NBL Pleb as well for all the latest news and everything. But Melbourne United do this every year. They start really, really well because they have a massive influx of home games. And then the lead up to the Australian Open and the tennis tournaments kicking off, there's always this drop off towards the middle part of the season. Now, I don't know if it comes down to something as simple as they're just gelling away from home or whatever the case is, or is there something more going on behind the scenes that we don't really know about? Now, I'm going to refer this to the AFL for a second. And if you're not an AFL fan, very, very sorry right now. But the Geelong Cats have this history of starting seasons relatively strong. Then they go through a 3 or 4 week patch and a lull where questions are raised from all different directions. What's going on with the Geelong? Why are they playing so bad? What's the go? And then we find out sort of in September as the lead up to finals kicks off that 3 or 4 week break was their peak conditioning, where they were just purely focused on making sure that they were the fittest team heading into the finals. And you see why they're such a successful club. And I believe I've heard and I've read some things that the Geelong Cats and Melbourne United have a very strong tie. Now, I don't know if this middle patch of the season around the FIBA break is where their sort of fitness and conditioning and everything just hits an all-time high. And we do know if you are doing that off the court, on the court, your performance is going to struggle. There's no question about it. But there's a reason why they have this lull in the middle of the year, and then the end of the season, they're flying again. And they come into the playoffs red hot. And we've seen that now where they've been in back-to-back grand final series. I know they've lost, but they've still made it to them 2 years in a row. So I don't know, maybe there's something more at play. But when we're diving into the stats as well, again, we're looking at their last 4 games. They've lost all 4. As a team, they're only averaging 90 points per game, and they're allowing an incredible number, 103.3 points per game, which is the worst in the NBL. It's still, when you look at the statistics, 95 is the next, and that's the Illawarra Hawks. They're 8 points worse off than the next worst team in the NBL. So just incredible. And again, again, for the sickos out there as well, defensive rating, they're second last. Offensive rating, they're second last with 105.2. And then the defensive rating, they're worse than competition again, 120. And it's a 5 rating difference between the next worst team. Sorry, Jai, what do you got?
Well, this time last year, literally, when I say this time last year, I mean within the week, they were 12-4, top of the ladder, and then they went on a 4-game losing streak, literally in the same mirror. We could just go flashback to 2024, and then they lost 4 in a row, and then they started going back to win. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen again, but I 100%. That's actually an interesting theory. I didn't know they had those ties with Geelong, and that would probably be, if true, a big reason why.
And I believe it's not just last season as well. I believe it was the season before. There's been a bit of a trend, and I've copped a bit of criticism for criticizing that sort of patch where they do go on these little lulls and their form might be 2 wins in 8 games or whatever the case is as well. That's where I've copped a bit of heat from maybe Melbourne in the past as well. But it does happen. But nonetheless, they're still an incredible team come the end of the season. And I expect that to be the case this season as well. They're too good of a roster to be able to start 9-0 and look like a team that no one can beat, to then have this stretch where they lose 4 in a row and everything like that, and the world's crumbling around them. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Melbourne United. Now, a couple of little things of news before we move on to our next segment, Jai. You were lucky enough to sit in the tribunal hearing today for Nick Rakosevich, who was directed straight to the single-person tribunal after that disqualifying foul. So what did you kind of find out from that? Obviously, the findings from that have been handed down and are allowed to release. So can you give us the latest on that one?
Yeah, it went for 10 minutes. It was really quick. I think everyone went in there with the expectation, knowing what the outcome would be. I think I went in going, he's going to get a fine. But he got, obviously, the lawyer who's representing NBL, was part of the single member tribunal, he just said, low contact. He initially said medium contact, and then he raised it to high contact, and then all that lawyer jargon. But then he said the fact that Rakosevich pretty much wrote a letter, contacted them, was apologetic, and rather than just trying to defend himself, he pleaded guilty straight up, which is a good sign. Being like, look, he made a mistake, he's willing to admit it. Greatly reduced it, so he got the two game ban and then the 1 game suspension for 24 months, which means if he gets in trouble again and gets found guilty, that game will be added on to whatever he gets for the next one. So he will not play this Wednesday against Sydney. And but no disrespect to him, it's not the greatest loss. He's playing pretty poor at the moment, but it's still he's still an import off the bench, which they need because their bench is pretty thin. But so 1 game suspension and then we move on.
Very interesting one for me, though, because he's a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, and I guess that's the Serbian potentially in him as well. But
yeah,
that good behaviour sort of mantra about it, it probably wouldn't take too much for him to push the line a little bit potentially, and we may see some sort of a suspension later on down the season. And
he absolutely knew what he was doing when he hit Finn Delaney, for sure.
100%. Yeah, I could not agree more with that as well. But nonetheless, we move on. 1 game suspension for Nick Rakosevich. Now, the other one of note, I got handed this a couple of weeks ago, that the New Zealand Breakers and Parker Jackson Cartwright were mutually interested in, I guess, some form of citizenship. And I got to speak with Dylan Boucher this morning, and we've released an article since on foxsport.com.au, and you can go check that one out, just sort of based around some of the things that are moving behind the scenes potentially with Parker Jackson Cartwright. Now, there's a number of things involved with this, but the clear one for me is a couple of quotes from Dylan, and he said, Parker sees this as his home and a home away from home. And the more interesting one as well is Dylan actually went to Parker after kind of thinking about this whilst he was working at Basketball NZ all those years, a couple of years ago now. And he went to Parker and said, is this something that you'd be interested in? And Parker's response was, absolutely. I'd love to explore what this looks like. So what this may look like is Parker applies for citizenship, becomes a local in New Zealand, which means he then would be a local player on the Breakers roster, and then could also play and feature for the New Zealand Tall Blacks. Now, I don't know what I'm more excited about, whether it's him being a local and what that brings to the NBL, another guy adding to it. And I must add quickly before we sort of dive in, have a bit of a discussion about this, Jai. This all stems from the Bryce Cotton naturalization of him becoming an Aussie. And we've now seen, it's been reported that Milton Doyle is another guy, Casey Prather, once again, now Parker Jackson Cartwright. We're seeing this wave of imports who have been here for a number of years and are loving what the NBL is, what Australia is, what New Zealand is, and they're interested in staying and being a part of the culture and obviously everything that is to be an Aussie or a Kiwi as well. So what are some of your thoughts on this, mate? And what do you find more exciting? Is it the Breakers or the Tall Blacks aspect?
I think it's the Tall Blacks. I think the Breakers is cool, but I think if they actually legitimately landed a proper pure point guard, that would be a very good team. Because right now, Taylor Britt's probably takes a lot of the point guard position with Flynn Cameron, so they're pretty weak at that spot. So PJC naturalizing to be a New Zealander would just continue the trend of imports coming and realizing that Australia and New Zealand are beautiful countries. They're not like other countries in the world. You get the flexibility to be creative and stuff, because we know PJC likes to be a bit of an artist himself. So he has the flexibility to do that and play basketball and live in an awesome country like New Zealand. And you mentioned the cotton aspect. Like we can just call this like the cotton, like it's just a cotton theme in terms of like players who come down, live Prather, Doyle, Doolittle. There's obviously got to be a long list of players. And, on my alumni episodes, every single player has said, I want to return and I will take a pay cut purely for the lifestyle. And the lifestyle, that means I want to stay and move here and live here and become a resident. Just because they all say, like, half of them have kids. They're like, our kids love it. They didn't want to return. Like, no disrespect to like playing in Russia and, Latvia and all that stuff. But like, Australia is an English-speaking country, good food, good quality of life. So, yeah, I'd be doing it if I was an import. But going back to PJC, I think it would be massive for the Breakers, not only Breakers, but yeah, it'd be Tall Blacks are just on like a generational run at the moment. So, yeah, I think it'd be a really good addition to them.
Yeah, I've been super excited about New Zealand basketball. If you haven't seen by some of the pushing, I guess, of the Breakers content and obviously the Tall Blacks content as well over there at Fox Sport. And, you look at the next wave, like the Kiwi under-17s just knocked off the Aussies, I believe, in the gold medal match in the World Cup qualifier. I can't remember what the exact tournament was, but they just knocked off by nearly, I think it was 20 points in the end as well. Something ridiculous like that. And the Aussie team coming through is stacked with star players as well. So you've got that coming through. You've got Dan Greeter, when I was speaking to him a while ago, named Jackson Ball the New Zealand basketball prodigy. He's the face of New Zealand basketball for the next 10 to 15 years. You've got Flynn Cameron, Sam Menenga, who dominated at this, this last little World Cup qualifier window against the Boomers. There's just so much hype around the Breakers, which I'm around the Tall Blacks, which I'm genuinely excited about. The only thing, though, quickly though, Jai, on this one, before we do move on to a quick little award prediction segment, applicants must live in the country as a resident for at least 5 years and be physically present in New Zealand for a minimum of 1,350 days. So I think when I worked it out, it was 3.7 years out of the 5 years they must be in New Zealand. And then just little other things as well. Demonstrate an intention to remain in the country long term and meet English language requirements. So a couple little things that he's still got to tick off. He's 3 years into that 5 years, and dependent on the times that he has been staying in New Zealand and everything as well, it may be interesting. He may have to spend a lot more time in the back end of the 5 years to potentially make up those days to apply for citizenship. But plenty more to come, but nonetheless, super exciting thing to potentially have Parker Jackson Cartwright floating around in the NBL as a local. Now, Joe, let's jump into our brief little award predictions. We might break this up into a couple of parts. We'll do the MVP, the Defensive Player of the Year, and Most Improved this week. And next week, we'll do the other couple of awards, which I believe are Sixth Man of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Next Generation as well. So we'll do those three next week. Now, MVP, I think we can kind of breeze over this one. We're kind of running a little bit behind schedule. So are we both in agreement? I think the distance between first and second is probably bigger than the distance between second and fifth. Is that sort of a fair assumption?
Cotton, it's his. It's locked up. He's having a generational run again. He leads the league in points. The fact that he leads the league in steals as well, and the fact that PJC has been leading the league all season in assists, and he had that game where he had 17 assists. He is only right now 9 assists ahead of Cotton, and Cotton has a game in hand. So that just goes to show you that Cotton is on a career season with assists. I think he's averaging, just finding it now, like
7.6 assists.
Ridiculous.
7.6.
26 points a game. Like it's stupid. No one's coming close. It's his. Lock it up.
I had a bit of a look into this because the MVP power rankings, and I wanted to kind of do more of a historical thing because I just think I can't keep saying, "Oh, it's Cotton's." I need to add some more weight to it. But he'll become the second player in NBL history to win back-to-back MVPs. So the first since Andrew Gaze, who I believe won 5 in a row, sort of in that early to mid 90s. So Cotton will be the third player, the second player to win 3 in a row, and he'll actually be the first Adelaide 36er, which is funny, since Jerome Randall to win the award, and that was in 2016-17 when Cotton actually joined the NBL for the Perth Wildcats as well. So statistical thing there as well, which is always exciting.
like
but we'll move on to the Defensive Player of the Year award. And again, we're in agreement here as well. And I'd love to hear your reasonings as to why in just a second. But we've both gone John Brown as this particular winner of this award. And I've got a couple of statistics here as well. So he's 13th in defensive rating as a single player on the third best defensive rating team in the NBL currently as well. And he's averaging 1.9 steals per game. And I thought his block numbers would be a little bit up. They're at 0.4 blocks per game this season, but even the steal numbers, like that's still a lot lower than I thought they were, because he just impacts games and influences games on the defensive end so much more than his statistics really give him the credit for as well. And, I know his metrics and his numbers aren't as big as a JaVale McGee, for example, but like I mentioned, he is a top 15 defensive rated player on a top 3 defensive rating team in the NBL currently. What are kind of your thoughts on John Brown III?
Well, when we're having our discussions about this, I've kind of changed and done a bit of a pivot. I actually think, looking at the stats, John Brown is leading, but I think someone who's really getting close is Fabijan Krislovic right now. Like he leads the league. He leads the league in defensive ratings. He's 3rd in blocks. He has 14 steals as well. I am so impressed with this guy's blocking. I don't know what's happened since he joined United. Previously with Tasmania, in the entire time he was with Tasmania, I'm pretty sure he had 31 blocks in 4 seasons. He's already on 29 in 19 games with United. So I don't know what Dean Vickerman's done to him. But again, he comes off the bench, plays not a lot of minutes, depending on who they're needing. But he's about an 18, 20-minute points per game guy. But when he does, he just is a game changer. He runs like he's exhausted all the time. But he does the right plays at the right time. So I think he's just behind John Brown. But John Brown is probably just getting over there a bit. Just purely, and I don't care about the blocks. He's one of the most persistent guys I've ever seen in the court. I would hate to go up against him. I would love to see a stat with what the players average when he's guarding them. But yeah, it's his. But Krislovic is coming.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one because, again, we've spoken about how poor Melbourne have been defensively for this last little stretch, but they still sit with the 3rd best defensive rating in the whole NBL. So you've got him in that. So I got that one wrong. So John Brown and the Phoenix, so they're 2nd, and Melbourne United are 3rd. So you've got John Brown and you've got Fabijan Krislovic. I like them as well. And again, JaVale McGee, he's having a historical individual season. But again, when you attribute what he's doing to the team, they still sit 8th in defensive rating this season, and they sit 8th in offensive rating. So as good as he's been individually, it's not really attributing to success on the court for the team as well. So that kind of, I think, pulls him out of the running of this particular award, even though he's averaging 2.1 blocks and I believe 1.9 steals, ridiculous statistical averages. But again, the ratings of the team aren't that great, which I think is a massive indicator as well, especially with your big man. Now, let's dive into the most improved. Jai, the floor is over to you. This was a guy who we both originally said. I've pivoted to pick another one just for a bit of a discussion, but your guy looks like I think he's set to win this award.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty I'm being pretty generic here, but it's Sam Menenga at the moment. I've never seen a guy, just excel after a season coming from Cairns, and then he had a bit of a slowish. He still averaged 5 more points in his first season with New Zealand. I'm like, okay, I don't know where he could fall either way with his trajectory, and then he's just, I don't know what he's done. I think that time with LA in the summer league has just given him confidence to be like, I can actually do this. I can reach this level. Decided that he just wants to posterize everyone now. I think every game there is a highlight reel. And now he's averaging 16 points, 7.5 rebounds, and then obviously the 1.5 assists and blocks. He doesn't do that stuff. But he's just stretching the floor more. And he's shooting 48%. And he's become a star player for the New Zealand Breakers. And he's better than any of the imports they have besides Parker Jack and Cartwright. No disrespect to the imports, but they seem to be more like role players. But he's just excelling. I don't know. Right now don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know if he could be like a legitimate 22 points and 11 rebound kind of guy. But he's still young. He's getting better. He's getting bigger somehow. He's a fucking unit. So yeah, we'll see what he's gonna be like in the future. But right now, it's probably his.
I'm going to say this right now. It's not a massive call. He's already been around the system, but he'll be an NBA player at some stage. There's no way his game suits it. He's an inside out big who can pick and roll and pick and pop, and he's a modern day big in the NBA. And I think we saw the best of him in the Tall Blacks when he played alongside of another big, where he could be able to stretch the floor and not have to worry about, oh, I've got to get inside and rebound. You saw him playing alongside of Yanni Wetzel and Tyrell Harrison, and that's where you got to see the best out of him for me personally. So
yeah. Then he tried to end Jack White's career.
Exactly. So if I'm Petteri Koponen or Judd Flavel, whoever takes over as the coach in NBL 27, I'm making sure that we've got a bona fide center next to him. And I think they kind of had that last season with Freddie Gillespie before he got moved on. And that would have been a really nice combination when you're looking at kind of what Sam's turned into and what Freddie already is. But yeah, really, really good decision. I've gone Josh Bannon. Career numbers in points per game, career numbers in rebounds, offensive rebounds, assists, field goal percentage. He's dominating across the board as well. And you gave me a little statistic, which I really, really appreciate. His first 2 seasons in the NBL for the Brisbane Bullets, he had a total of 6 double-doubles. And in just 18 games this season, he's had 8 already, which is just incredible when you're looking at this guy. I think he's, just established himself. I remember this quote from Derek Rucker like it was yesterday. And if you followed sort of the Basketball Fix years ago, you know how highly I've been of Josh Bannon. I thought he was always going to be destined to be a star. The Josh Banana Man Bannon used to call him as well back in the day. But Derek Rucker said something, and it really kind of annoyed me last season, where he said, I can't see Bannon ever being more than a 7th or 8th man on the bench in a rotation. And I look at what he's done this season. He's arguably their most important player. I think he's their second best player in terms of what he does for the team, in terms of statistical averages. I think it's Bryce Hamilton, then Josh Bannon. And he's just been such an impressive sort of guy on the offensive end and defensive end for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers as well, and was massive on the weekend. He had 12 points and 13 rebounds in one of those games as well, and had an incredible impact. So, again, I'll put him up there. I think it's between him and Sam Menenga. And maybe even Flynn Cameron potentially as well. But, Jai, let's jump into our round 13 preview. It's going to be relatively short. We want to stick this to about 45 minutes, but we're probably going to run over just a little bit of time as well. But the key games for me, when I look at it, and I've got them in the title here as well, is can anyone stop Adelaide? And now this week they play the 2 New South Wales teams in the Sydney Kings and the Illawarra Hawks, both away from home. Now the Sydney game is at AIS Stadium in Canberra, so technically not really a home game for the Sydney Kings either. But do you think maybe the Sydney Kings in that hot form where they've just won 2 in a row, maybe they can knock off the LA 36ers? I think it was sort of this point last time when they won that 4-game winning streak. I think they won 2 games, came in, everyone was like, I think they're going to beat Melbourne United, and they beat Melbourne United, and then went on won that next game, and then it was a 4-game win streak. So can they be the ones that stop the Adelaide 36's 7-game win streak?
Yeah, I think they can. I think Sydney will win this game. I think the last time they played each other, Adelaide started the season 3-0, and then Sydney handed them their first loss, winning by like 25 points or something. So they're in a hot groove at the moment. Brian Goorjian is sane right now, which is good. And yeah, I just think they're starting to click at the right time. The fact they're doing this with, and I'm shocked they have not initiated like opening the wallet and claiming that last import spot, is pretty impressive. They seem to be sticking with that core local unit they've have. And I don't know, I've got to find out, but I think Jason Spurgeon is I know they said he was out for the season, but I think it's changing now. He actually might come back late January or something. So, and like he's not a big, huge game changer, but he's a body. I know Kali Pepe is out for the season, so it's unfortunate. So I think Sydney win this game and they kind of flex their muscle a bit.
I just want to give a quick one on that last import spot. I spoke to Brian Goorjian a couple of weeks ago now. There is no way that they will bring a third import in. So there's no chance, in his opinion, that the ownership group wants to bring a third import in, that the general managers and also him as well. There's just no need in their opinion, and they're kind of set in that as well. So they're going to run the 2 import structure all season long because they're, in Brian Goorjian's words, trying to build for long-term success, not just short-term success. So a bit of an interesting one there as they're trying to, hold on to guys like Kwatnoy and Jalen Galloway instead of pushing them further down the rotation with another import.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that, to be fair, especially in an Australian league. But yeah, I'm not opposed. I think Adelaide will win both games. I think they'll stretch their win streak to 9. I know they do need to lose a game relatively shortly, but I can't see it being this week. And I'm just looking ahead as well. Maybe it's against the Perth Wildcats on December 28th, where they could potentially be going for an 11-game win streak. They could lose that, but I think there's a chance that they really breeze through the next few weeks because they've got a pretty easy run coming up. Now, the other game of note for me in round 13 as well, Melbourne United taking on the Illawarra Hawks at John Cain is going to be a big game for a number of reasons. A massive chance for the Melbourne United to get back on the winner's circle and the Illawarra Hawks to potentially build some momentum as well. So there's massive ramifications. The Hawks win this. They've won 3 and 4 and are starting to climb the ladder slightly. They're only one game behind 7th and 2 games behind 6th. So they're right on the heels. And again, on the flip side of that, Melbourne United lose this game. That's 5 losses in a row. And their season is well and truly in sort of dire straits as well. So that's going to be one of note. And I guess when you kind of look at this round, there's a number of sort of games which are somewhat exciting. The Tassie Jack Jumpers have the chance with the Perth Wildcats at My State Bank Arena and then Melbourne United at John Cain Arena on the 23rd of December. So there's just a really nice amount of games, but it's exciting because I wanted to touch on this quickly. I've seen the promos. I've seen everything. The 12 games of Christmas have now started. So I believe it's a game every day from Wednesday all the way. Let me just double check, but I believe it's Boxing Day is the final day of 12 days. Oh no, it's continuing on. So it goes all the way to the 30th, which would make sense when I think about it. So yeah, from the 17th of December all the way to the 30th of December, there is a game every single night. So it's going to make life incredibly hard for us, I guess, in terms of covering the games and doing podcasts and everything like that. But nonetheless, it's going to be incredible watching so much NBL basketball. But Jai, what else? Some of your thoughts from round 13 or just some thoughts in general from the NBL?
This upcoming round's interesting. I'm really locked in because I'm a bit of a sicko because I want to see how bad Brisbane do because I want to see how far it can tilt until they go, all right, we need to start changing. And so they've got New Zealand and Phoenix this round. I think they're going to lose both of them. Shout out to Terry Taylor, though. I think he's playing some really good basketball in his last 2 games. Javon's been a bit average. I'll give him a bit of leeway. And one last thing is Perth. I really want to see them improve because I think they've got a better roster than what they're playing at. I think JLA is really underperforming for his price tag. Cannot hit a free throw to save his life. I think he's like 7 for 20 in his last 3 games. And yeah, I just want to see them actually get back to winning ways because as much as I take the piss out of them on my Twitter and stuff, people must think I have no affiliation with any NBL team. I don't follow a team. I follow the league. And I just think some comments made by some people should just be cemented as a meme for the rest of its days until, we get over it, until Bryce Cotton wins that championship trophy. But I'm excited for the round. I totally forgot the whole 12 days of Christmas thing where there's a game on every day. I remember that from last year. It was one of the greatest times of the year. Very keen for that. And even though we might not be able to see every game, like get on podcasts and stuff, I actually might arrange like a live, viewing. I don't know how I'll do that, but I'd love to watch a game and have people like comment and I can chat to them live and stuff, which would be a lot of fun. Maybe we can work out doing that.
Well, I think we'll have enough time. I finish and break up from my other job, as per se, on the 18th of December. So we're going to have some time, I think, throughout the days to kind of do a couple of podcasts here and there as well, and maybe have a bit more fun over that Christmas break where kind of everyone else is off work. And 100%, I'm more than down for.
Mate, let's just get beers and just chat with people and watch games.
100%. Awesome. I think it would be awesome. Now, I just want to quickly, before we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to touch on the Brisbane Bulls quickly. So I've just got this schedule up right now. So as we know, 6-game losing streak right now.
Oh, no.
This is their next 6 games. They've got the South East and Phoenix, followed by the New Zealand Breakers. Then it's Melbourne United, the Sydney Kings, the Perth Wildcats, and the Adelaide 36ers. There's a chance that they do not win a game over the next 6 games, and it's a 12-game losing streak. And then who's the team who they can potentially break the streak against? No other than their state rival, the Cairns Taipans. But then their rest of their season, this is a horrible schedule. Sydney, Melbourne, Then they get a bit of relief. They play the Illawarra Hawks. Then they play the Adelaide 36ers,
Oh my God.
Tassie in my state, then luckily Cairns, and then Brisbane, Sydney. So they play in their last, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They play the top 5 teams. I think it's 8 times in their last 15 games. They play the top 5 teams. That is just ridiculous.
And out of that, they need to win at least 8 of those games to do one game better than last year, which is why they fired Justin Schuler.
Oh, mate, it's going to be absolute mayhem once again. But nonetheless, that is what we do like here, and obviously being able to cover all that sort of stuff as well. But that'll wrap up another episode of the NBL Show. Jai, really good episode, I think, this afternoon. And again, finally building some consistency, which I know we both are liking as well. And I'm sure everyone at home will be enjoying as well. But as always, make sure comment down below with any thoughts, ideas, and go and check out NBL Alumni as well. Incredible episodes, incredible stories as well. It's been really cool learning different aspects of their lives, all these players as well, and also just their thoughts and opinions on the league nonetheless. And always make sure you head over to Fox Sport Basketball on X and obviously on Facebook as well. Plenty of news and everything going on there. An Instagram page is in the works. So is a Spotify as well. So hopefully over the next few weeks, all this stuff starts to come together and the Fox Basketball empire is well and truly building. But Jai, closing thoughts from you, my friend?
Yeah, and going back to the NBL alumni stuff, I got one more episode coming out for the rest of the year until next year. That will be with Tanner Groves. Interesting story. You can find out how he got cut from a team in Latvia and how that ended up him in China, which led to NBL, which I find really fascinating. But until then, we'll be back as much as we can. We'll try and work out how to do a live show if everyone's available over the Christmas holidays. But yeah, everyone just have fun and hope you enjoy the show, and we'll try and be back next week. We'll see how we go. But yeah.
Definitely. No, definitely. It's going to be very, very exciting. 12 days of Christmas over here in the NBL. We're looking forward to keeping up to date with everything going on. But until next time, we hope you've enjoyed the NBL show presented by Fox Sport.